Parang may feedback tapos robotic. Pero do you hear me? Okay, hello. I don't understand pala, pero do you understand me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is better. Anong ginawa mo?
This one is better. We can hear you
Yeah.
better here.
Okay, okay. I hear you better na. So may nangyari. So let's keep it's let's keep it there whatever that was. So,
Okay.
okay, sige. I'll oh fuck. Ayan. Do you hear my do you see my screen?
Alright.
Ayan, okay. Sige. Yep. Okay, sige. Before I start, siguro I'll introduce myself na lang din. So, I'm Tim Salomon, hindi Joy yung name ko. Hindi ko lang mapalitan yung nasa, ano ko, tawag doon, nasa profile. So, Timothy Salomon, sabi nga ni EG, we work before sa Office of the Presidential Advisor on the peace process. Tapos currently, ako yung national coordinator ng International Land Coalition sa Pilipinas. So we're a network of advocates for land and resource rights in the Philippines. So yun, iba-iba yung work namin. Nagla-lobby kami for land laws like agrarian reform and indigenous people's rights, tsaka natural resource governance. Tapos ano din ako, head din ako ng isang network of indigenous people involved in conservation of nature. So yan. So I'll deliver this to you. It's a situationer on the state of indigenous peoples in the Philippines. So itong usually when we think of indigenous peoples, kadalasan kadikit nung image na yun are mountains or landscapes And possibly dahil Filipino indigenous peoples kasama yung rice terraces kasi it's the iconic heritage, yung wisdom nila through the years etching yung agricultural practice nila dun sa mga marginal lands. Sipin mo nakagawa sila ng rice sa isang high terrain. Usually if you don't know what rice entails of how to produce it and how to harvest it needs a lot of water. And water is hard to come by in high places. So what they did is they contoured the mountain, the forest, and the water so that the water is produced naturally when there is rain and held by by the trees. So hindi yan it's a natural technology that they harnessed and inaral nila yan through the years. So sila yung mga sinauna nating mga engineers, mga water and environmental engineers. And ngayon meron ditong picture, ang ginagawa namin is we map these wisdoms, yung tinatawag na traditional knowledge, so that it is preserved and conserved and allows us to help yung current and future generations to understand yung wisdoms ng mga ways na indigenous peoples. Kasi usually many of our problems have actually arisen because we have forgotten these wisdoms. And later daanan natin yung mga wisdoms na nakalimutan and the ways with which these wisdoms can be used in the modern day. So as a general situationer, there is no official count of how many indigenous peoples there are in the Philippines. Yung census right now, yung latest census which was conducted in 2020, hindi pa na-release. Yung 2020 census pa lang ang first na makakabuo ng official count of indigenous peoples in the Philippines. So, nun na naisip ilagay yung variable of having ethnicity as being counted in the Philippine census. Pero estimates tell that to 15 million indigenous peoples in the Philippines. So there are 110 tribes or ethno-linguistic groups. So pag sinabi mong tribe, ano yan? It's a closely knit group, collection of clans who have historically been allied with each other and tied to to a particular territory. So pag sinabing 110 tribes, ang ibig sabihin nun ay there a particular group that has what you call a social structure. So kung may mga student org kayo na may president, may vice president, etc., all tribes have that kind of structure. So depende dun sa mismo structure nila. Like pwedeng may elder, pwedeng may chieftain, etc. So pag sinabing tribe, that is their unit. Meron silang ganong klaseng social structure. And that social structure governs a particular territory. So yun ang element na isang tribe. Number one, they're a group of people. Number two, they have a structure. Meron silang leadership and political structure. Tapos number three, meron silang territory and natural resources that they exercise governance over. Ayan, historically, they are found in forests or coastal areas. Historically kasi, yung Spanish occupation have driven them to these what you call marginal lands. Dati they occupy the more fertile agricultural lands, yun yung madaling magpatubo ng crops like vegetables and rice and whatever. Yun, kinuha yung lands na yun from them and they were driven to marginal lands like forests and coasts. So yan, I'll run you through doon sa mga broad categories or yung tinatawag nilang ethno-linguistic groups na na pinanggalingan nung bawat tribe ng 110. So may mga general categories sila. The first one, and this was the first peoples that arrived in the Philippines, ang mga Negrito. Yung mga Negrito, ang origin nila is from a particular island, yung Zanzibar Islands off the coast of India. So I think familiar naman kayo dito kung pumupunta kayo ng Subic, or I think they're also present in Manila once in a while. So yun, Negrito, sila yung mga curly-haired, dark-skinned, and smaller in height na mga tao. Sila yung mga first peoples in the Philippines. And kung makikita nyo, scattered yung territory nila across the country. So yun, yung dito sa mapa, marami sila. Hindi sila concentrated in a particular area. Kasi yung lifestyle nila, pumasok sila sa Pilipinas, nomadic pa sila during nung may mga ice, nung may mga ice caps pa yung seas. So, ang nangyari, they scattered around, and yung lifestyle nila, hindi sila yung agricultural to begin with. So, yung mga settlements nila are rather small. Usually nga, in modern times, hindi sila makabuo ng isang barangay sa usually parang pero ngayon nakakabuo naman na sila because of population growth, etc. Pero yun ang particular characteristic ng Negrito, kung any of these groups, yung Aita, Agta, Ati, Dumagat, etc. Mamanwa, yung hanggang Mindanao meron yan. Maliliit yung settlements nila. Tapos very recluse. They usually reside in the most yung tawag doon, uninhabitable places in the forest and even in the coasts. And sila actually yung pinaka maraming difficulties in terms of poverty. They tend to be the poorest group, indigenous peoples groups in the Philippines. Yung second group naman, ito yung mga tawag the Cordillera peoples. So yung mga people of the north. Ang origin nila in terms of migration is from Taiwan. Yung Taiwan is galing din ng China yung mga migration pattern nun. So yun, kaya if you go to the Cordilleras, Baguio, Sagada, these people tend to have a chinkier eyes, and yung mga skin tone nila are a little lighter. So yun, that's because they came from rather meron silang genetic heritage na medyo similar sa East Asians. So yun, yung mga lugar nila nandito sa north, yung Cordillera Administrative Region, and some yung Caraballo Mountain Ranges, that's the connection of the Cordillera Mountain Range and the Sierra Madre Mountain Range. Ayan. Marami naman na sa inyo nakapunta na ng Baguio, no? Or ng Cordillera. Yes. Yan. So, baka nakakilala nyo na sila. Ayan. Tapos meron din yung island groups. Yung island groups, naman sila, ito usually they came from the Negrito and interacted with the Cordillera peoples. Ito yung mga tao na galing ng Negrito talaga na nag-interact doon sa mga taga North. So usually galing sila from both heritage, from both migration heritage, and develop a particularly in the middle na na itsura. So kunyari yung mga Mangyan or yung other group sa Palawan, hindi sila particularly mukhang Negrito, pero they have Negrito features kasi nasa gitna sila. So para silang cross ng mga taga Northern Luzon at saka nung mga Negrito. So ganyan yung mga itsura nila, yung darker skin pero rosy cheeks. Parang ganoon. Hindi sila talaga completely dark or completely mukhang mountain people. So they reside in the island groups, so Palawan, Mindoro, Panay, Negros, etc. Tapos very ano sila, kung papansinin, since they're in the island groups, they have usually they have the most intact culture. What do I mean by that? Usually they retain their native language, their native alphabet. In fact, each of the 7 mangyans, they still use yung script nila in their traditional educational system. So meron silang pwede niyo hanapin yung hanunuho or buhid text. Yun. They also learn that alongside yung usual text natin na alphabet. Ayan. So that's different pa from doon sa ang tawag doon yung it's different pa from Alibata. It's different from that pa. Ayan. Tapos finally, yung Lumads of Mindanao. Yung particular term na lumad, it's been politicized by the previous administration na sinasabi nila na nare-red tag yung term na lumad, pero in general, it was these indigenous peoples groups who themselves coined themselves as lumad. So it's a collective term for indigenous peoples in Mindanao. Particularly, it's a form to differentiate themselves from Christians and Muslims in Mindanao. So people whose origins are who claim to have a claim of a deeper nativity. So ibig sabihin pag nativity, meron silang longer history in the location than those who are considered migrants. So kunyari, yung Christians usually they are migrants from the Visayas or from Luzon. Tapos yung mga Muslims, they are considered naman influenced by yung mga tao from Sabah or from Indonesia. So, yung claims of nativity ng Lumad Mindanao, that is because they came before all of these religion practicing settlers came in. So, yung naman nila, similar to the island regions, yung genetic heritage nila is a cross between Negrito and the yung northern Luzon ng Cordillera. Tapos may halo na rin sila ng Malaysian yung group na yon kasi nga nag-interact na sila deeply with Muslims. Especially nung nagkaroon ng slave trade, meron kasing, kung familiar kayo historically, the Muslims who entered Mindanao, they expanded their territory not only to get natural resources but to also harvest people to trade dun sa international slave trade. So yung mga slaves na binebenta ng mga Moro noon were indigenous peoples actually who are now considered Lumads. So medyo maraming issues and conflicts in yung assertions of Lumad identity because of that violent past. Bukod dun sa intrusions ng Spain, meron din conflict with Moros who were trying to conquer them for slave trade. In fact, yung Moros, hindi lang naman sila natapos sa Mindanao. They also went to Negros and to Panay and to Palawan to look for slaves. Pero this is very much intense, especially dun sa mga nearby places sa Mindanao. Ayan, sige. So, anong oras na ba? Dami ko na ata na-consume na time. Anyway, ayan. So, yung political and cultural life. So, each tribe, they have their internal and self-determined institutions. Ano ibig sabihin nun? Ito yung sinabi ko kanina na meron silang parang organization within themselves. So, kung familiar kayo dun sa old institutions of the barangay, ano lang siya, I think the barangay is mas ano siya eh, mas sa Luzon siya, based siya sa Tondo Empire. Hindi lahat barangay system, pero in general, they had their own institutions, they have their own organizations na ano na that have been strengthened since time, through time. Tapos yung mga institutions na yan tend to be informal and flexible and passed from one generation to another and naging customary practice. Ang ibig sabihin nun, hindi siya talaga nakasulat except for there are certain tribes na nagpa-practice ng pagsusulat ng kanilang political institution.
So, kung
Meron naman nagsusulat. Hello?
sorry, I'm saying, Timmy, word of mouth.
Oo, parang word of mouth. And through years of practice. So yun, kaya siya naging customary practice. Custom, nakasanayan na. So nakasanayan na nila, for example, that elders of a certain age or of a certain profession are respected for certain community decisions. Ganyan. So, yun, nakasanayan. That's the best term for it. So, yun. So, yung, kunyari, yun, and decisions on land ownership, conflict, natural resource, etc., peace and war are made through these customary practices. So para siyang parang meron kayong barkada, parang ganon, tapos meron na kayong nakasanayan na way of making decisions. Like kunyari, yung kaibigan yung magaling magluto, siya yung nagme-make ng decisions kung ano yung lulutuin. Parang ganon. So kung sino yung magaling magaling dito or sino yung in the past was very useful sa ganitong klaseng activity, siya yung gagawa ng ganon.
Sorry, Timmy. Matanong ko lang.
Yeah?
Really? So, kunwari, sabi mo nga, customary. So, kung sino yung
Oo.
pinakamatanda, siya yung bigla institutional memory. Tama, no?
Oo.
So, kaya nagkakaroon ng gera o kaya problema ng aaway ng tribe. Kunwari, may namatay na yung elder. So, hindi natigil na yung custom or how does that work? Just to apply it to conflict.
Depende sa tribo kasi usually mas medyo modern na kasi yung mga tribo ngayon, meron na silang mga organizational structures. So hindi parang kung may namatay na elder, usually yung decisions that the elder has made and na-pass on na siya sa iba. So kahit mamatay siya, somebody takes his or her place.
Documented na.
Oo, not necessarily documented pero there is memory about it. Kasi usually hindi na lang siya single elder eh. Like there's a council or there's a committee. So there's a group of people who make these decisions. So ayun. Usually ganun din yung decision making nila. It's a discussion, may consultation ng greater lahat ng families usually, pero yung final decision is made by a group of elders.
Elders.
Ganon. Tapos through time, magiging customary law siya. Hindi siya yung katulad ng law na meron ng Republic of the Philippines na pinapasa in Congress. Pero yung mga certain pag nagiging law siya dahil na siya, paniniwala na siya talaga. It's katulad ng sa science, 'di ba, merong hypothesis to theory to law. 'Di ba ganun 'yon? Ganun din siya sa tribo. Yung dating yung dating chismis, tapos naging practice, naging customary practice, tapos naging customary law. It's their own way of categorizing the world. And yun. So for example, it's a concrete example sa Sagada. Sa Sagada, meron sila dating observations na na laging may nadidisgrasya kung may umaalis ng 3 days after a bagyo. 3 days. So walang umaalis ng territory basta 3 days after ng bagyo. And through the years, naging practice siya. Tapos habang may pumupunta ng mga tagalabas, nangyayari pa rin siya. May namamatay pa rin lagi. 'Di ba nakakarinig tayo parati na may namamatay sa Cordillera after a bagyo? So naging law siya, bawal na siyang lumabas. And scientifically actually, sa geological science, pwede mo siya i-explain actually kasi after 3 days, that's usually when the landslides occur. Because hindi naman yan kaagad guguho. It usually takes yung first bagyo, yun yung guguho doon, yung mga maliliit na bato. Pero yung mga bigger rocks, gumuguho sila on the 3rd day because yung soil lumambot, etc., yung nasira yung mga puno.
So it makes sense talaga.
Oo. So usually, yung customary practice, yun yung mga yun yung mga bills in Congress. Parang ganun yung katapat niya. Yung customary law, yun na talaga yung batas. Kasi napatunayan na siya. And usually customary laws can actually be explained by science. Kasi nga, 'di ba ang science it's only about 200 years old, 'di ba? 200 years old pa lang ang science. Ang customary law usually is rooted in the life of the tribe, which is about at least 500 years. So pag sinabi mong wisdom of the tribes, usually they're actually older and more effective than science kasi nga 500 years na sila. It may not be measured by modern ways of observation and analysis. Yung wala pa silang mga biological or mga social scientific na mga tools. Pero yung years ng tribo of practice, of passing down generations, of discussing among community members and elders, it's usually it's usually very solid and backed by 500 years of evidence. Okay? Yan. So if I said, yun ang buong punot dulo ng pagiging tribo. We had something and it was working way before anyone entered. Okay? And usually, the way Philippine history is taught in our educational system, it starts with the occupation of the Spanish. Or, 'di ba? Philippine history is usually taught na pumasok si Magellan, nagkaroon ng battle with Lapu-Lapu. When Philippine history, it all began with the entry of the Negritos, with the entry of the Taiwanese migrants, with the entry of the Muslims who influenced yung mga lumad sa Mindanao. Nasa na lahat yun, hindi siya tinuturo. There have been empires way before the Spanish entered. May Tondo Empire, may Butuan Empire, may Sulu and Maguindanao Empire. Tapos, ang ginawa pa ng Spanish, pumasok sila and they claimed na meron silang tinatawag na Regalian Doctrine. Isipin nyo meron ng customary laws, 500 years old. Here comes the white people, the Spanish people saying, we own everything. Huh?
Kasi you're that's good. Continue. We like your
Diba? Regalian Doctrine, we own. Isipin mo igurot ka, nakabuo ka ng sarili mong rice terraces. Inetch mo yung bundok, gumawa ka ng irrigation system from way up. Kasi di ba water travels with gravity? Di ba? How do you sustain water in such a high place? You must be a very intelligent community. You have a writing system Diba? You have an agricultural system, you have a writing system, you have a water management system. Diba? And suddenly somebody comes in and says they own everything. Tapos, after 300 years, sasabihin pa ng after 300 years, ibebenta ng Spanish yung Pilipinas sa Amerika. And in fact, if to be frank, the Spanish were never able to conquer the Igorots of northern Luzon. And they even barely scratched Mindanao. Kung sasakupin mo, ang nasasakop lang nila were about siguro hanggang Ilocos and Cagayan sa north, pero never Cordillera. Tapos sa Mindanao naman, parang hindi nila fully nasakop yung Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, yung Maguindanao, some parts of Sultan Kudarat, etc. Never, pero binenta nila. Binenta nila yung lupa ng Pilipinas even if they were not ever able to capture these indigenous people's lands. So ang nangyari, yung Regalian Doctrine, nalipat siya sa law, sa batas. All lands of the public domain and natural resources are owned by the state. Kung dati, pagmamay-ari siya ng crown, ng Spanish crown, biglang pagmamay-ari na siya ng state. Kasi gobyerno, modern republic na yung meron ng United States na when they entered. And even up to now, that is still our law. We still have that law that all lands of the public domain and natural resources are owned by the state. Kahit mayroong mga lugar na never nasakop. And in effect, it made the indigenous people squatters in their own land by law. In fact, yung Americans, nasakop lang quote-unquote nila yung Cordillera kasi nagbukas ng isip yung Cordillera dahil nabilib sila dun sa American technology, American culture. So pumayag ang Cordillera that education and technology enter. Kaya lang nagkaroon ng entry. Pero the Americans had no way to conquer Cordillera kasi yung terrain niya talaga, if you've been, di ba? Ayan. Yung Muslims naman, yung mga lumad, yung mga Muslims, they had to be very violent. Nagkaroon ng massacres, nagkaroon ng ransacking of towns just to be able to claim territory. Kasi hindi talaga magbibigay. Isipin mo yung mga lumad, nag-resist sila ng slave trade ng Muslims. Hindi din nila ibibigay yun sa mga Americans ng ganun kadali. So they had to be killed. Kaya pag sinabi mong history of peoples in the Mindanao, it's really violent. Kasi nga ang daming nagkita-kitang mga assertions of strength and claim dun sa lugar na yun. Ayan. Pero let me introduce you to some triumphs within the legal system na achieve even when during the American occupation. So merong Igorot man, si Mateo Carino, taga Baguio siya, nag-file siya ng case sa mga land grabbers ng mga Amerikano. At dinala niya hanggang sa US Supreme Court. In fact, pumunta pa yan ng Washington DC tsaka ng New York just to claim yung lupa nila sa Baguio. And they won actually. So I want you to know this. Merong Supreme Court decision in the United States nung conquered ba tayo ng United States that all ancestral lands, so pag sinabi ancestral lands, yung mga lupa ng mga katutubo, are privately owned by indigenous people since time immemorial. So as far as memory reaches. And these have never been part of the public domain. Ano ibig sabihin nun? In US Supreme Court, US law, ibig sabihin nun, never nasakop ng Amerikano ang lupa ng katutubo. Nandun yun sa batas ng Amerikano. Kinilala siya. Tapos nandun din siya sa Philippine legal system. Dahil decision siya ng US Supreme Court na take na ano siya, na take on siya ng Philippine law. Tapos marami na rin mga decisions, hindi ko na didetalyehin, marami na rin decisions that support this. So pag dinala mo sa court ang claims of land ng mga katutubo, mananalo ang katutubo sa Philippine legal system. Okay? So sa korte, panalo ang tribo. Pero hindi naman lahat ng tribo marunong magdala ng kaso sa korte. So tuloy-tuloy lang ang tuloy-tuloy lang ang pagnanakaw ng lupa at ng resources. So you hear indigenous peoples in the news, it's siguro mga 75% of the time ang kwento no na nakawan sila ng lupa or pinaalis sila ng lupa. Yan. Sorry for the disturbing images. So usually yan, binibili yung lupa nila for low prices, pinipilit sila magbenta. At yung magre-resist, pinapatay. In fact, Boracay is an ancestral domain. The whole of Boracay. Kung nakapunta na kayo ng Boracay, yung golf course, yung mga resort, wala yung pahintulot lahat, ninakaw sa kanilang lahat yan. Mga ati, mga negritos of Boracay. Ang binigyan lang ng titulo is a marginal land na that is actually just the size of the Dolomite Beach. Parang gano'n, mga dalawang Dolomite Beach lang yung binigyan ng titulo sa kanila. Even if historically, na mapa naman na yan at legit yung claim nila na kanila yung buong Boracay Island. And there's mining that allows for entry of foreign mining. So technically available lang mining for all foreign companies to harvest yung mga mineral resources. 18 million hectares ng lupa ng Pilipinas are mineralized. We're about number 2 in terms of mineralization in the world. Number 1 sa silver and sa copper. And dami pa. Rich tayo in mineral resources. Pero ang problema, ito yung black, that's the mineral resources in the country. Yung makikita nyo sa mapa, yung black squares.
Saan concentration?
Oo.
Ano naman yan, purple?
Itong blue naman yung, but protected area. Anyway.
Situated yung mga IPs.
Oo.
Superimpose mo.
So malaki talaga yung overlap.
Technically, masasagasaan sila. Pag hinukay.
Yes. Oo.
Basically.
Hindi lang maganda yung hindi lang maganda yung images ko, pero ito, marami talagang company. Hindi ko naman siya babasahin, pero ganyang kadami yung mining company sa bansa natin. Sobrang dami. Ito, iba-ibang bansa. Canada, Australia, United Kingdom, United States, China, South Africa, Japan, etc. Everybody is here. The country is free. Libreng kumuha ng minerals sa Pilipinas. Ayun, Netherlands, Mexico, France, etc. Daming ina-approve. Kasi ito yung affected, There are about 507 applications approved, affecting 281 ano to?
I presume that was released because 2012 pa yung data mo.
Oo, 2012 pa to, hindi na kami pinibigyan ng bago eh.
Ayaw na magbigay.
Oo, kasi kalat na. Ayan. So, marami lang ako images. Well, this is our work kasi. So we map yung mga mining permits and the damages done to ancestral domains. Kaya ito talaga Mindoro, mother. Ang
Mindoro.
dami. Oo, ayan oh. Parang parang ano, tawag doon, geometry project yung ayan. Tapos Palawan din. Sa Palawan kasi it's a very fragile ecosystem. So pag nag-mine ka doon talaga affected yung forest. Tapos yun, yung people are affected because their lives are tied to the forest. It's their source of food. Meron din sa Mindanao, South Cotabato, etc. So yan. Ito dati yung ilog ay yung lake, tanong mo naman grows. So meron din mga renewable energy projects. Ito, updated ang data namin dito. Proud kasi yung government sa renewable energy. So we have data on this. So yan, lahat yan in indigenous people's territories.
Just to,
So ang daming,
yeah, sorry, Dini. The impact kasi
yes.
of hydro, yung mga dam, nire-reroute nila yung tubig. Diba?
Yes.
That's the problem. Oh, Dini, sorry.
Yes, definitely. Kasi ang problema din kasi for example, the whole movement, di ba nag-declare ng martial law noong 1972?
Into,
1972. Tama ba?
tama, sir.
I think, oo.
Tama, sir.
1972. Hindi lang siya napopularize, pero sinasabi kasi that the martial law was declared because of the Moro movements, yung mga Muslims revolting. Pero actually the real tinatawag na mitsa, the real trigger for martial law declaration were the revolts in the Cordilleras because of the Chico Dam, yung si Makiing Dulag. Ano yun 1969 yun nag-start yung struggle doon. Tapos nakabuo na sila ng Cordillera People's Liberation Army in 1971. A year after dineclare yung martial law. MNLF was created 1972, a few months after martial law. So yun, kung isipin mo the whole declaration of martial law is actually rooted. Kung titingnan mo in Philippine history, kung tama lang yung nababasa natin, it's actually because of indigenous people struggles. Because of the exploitation of natural resources within their lands.
Sorry, Timmy.
Yan.
How long?
Yeah?
How long pa tayo? How many more slides?
Konti na lang to. Pictures na lang to
Sorry.
Hindi na, okay lang. Hindi naman sa tumatanggi yung tribes sa sa development. In fact, ito kunyari sa Ambuklaw Dam, pumayag sila because they understand the wisdom of making such dams. It's actually the largest dam in the world nung tinayo ang Ambuklaw Dam. Tapos pinalitan siya San Roque Dam. Lahat yan indigenous people's territory. Yan. Tapos there's the Laiban Dam and the Kaliwa Dam is also here. Meron din Mindanao, etc. So even geothermal projects. Ayan, yung Mount Apo, may consent yan actually. So hindi naman tumatanggi sila. Pero the problem is when they have, it's as if they don't have the right to say no. Kasi kapag nag-no sila, the state deals with them too violently. Ayan. So give me the one last minute to make another point. This is our website, yung ICCAPH. Ayan. Tapos, what we do is we document yung role ng indigenous peoples sa conservation of nature. Pakita ko lang to. Ayan.
Actually, yung
Humble brag lang.
the research output,
Yeah.
ang finals ng itong mga bata nito, TV, is mamimili sila ng mga
Yeah.
social issues. Are you willing, if ever, na interviewin ka pa nila further?
Sure. Sure.
Gusto nyo. Thank you, TV.
Yeah. Yep. So kunyari ito, balikan natin yung sinasabi ko, yung mga many of the modern issues of our time can actually be solved by getting back to the wisdoms of the indigenous peoples. For example, yung pandemic. Kung familiar kayo sa nangyari ng pandemic, yung indigenous peoples, naapektuhan lang sila around late 2020. Di ba nag-start yun 2019?
December
And 19. Hindi pala 2020, naapektuhan lang sila ng late 2021, most of them. Because they have their ways of,
2021 lang sila naapektuhan ng COVID, mga IPs.
Oo, most of them actually. Yung first case was about the third quarter of 2021. Bakit? Kasi kasi isipin nyo, historically, ang dami ng mananakop na gustong kunin yung lupa nila, di ba? So they have a way of actually tracking yung entry ng mga tao and seeing who can enter and not letting them
Effective yung
enter.
contact tracing nila.
Oo, magaling sila. And hindi sila reliant on the market for food. They grow their own food on their own farms. They gather it from the forests. So habang gutom yung mga tao sa Metro Manila, sagana sila. Kasi ngayon, hindi na nga pumupunta yung mga gustong bumili sa kanila. So yung pagkain nila, sa kanila lang yun.
Yun yung nakikitang nabubulok na gulay sa Baguio, tsaka sa Cordillera.
Oo, kanila yun. Kasi nga, and actually, well, malungkot yung mga farmers kasi hindi sila kumikita. Pero from a food perspective, wala silang pake kasi they grew it eh. Kanila yun eh. Some of the farmers told me nga, nagdadrama lang kami na ayaw namin na nabubulukan kami. Pero sa totoo lang, okay lang. Gagawin namin yung gagawin namin yung tomato sauce. Alam mo yun, parang busog kami ng matagal. Ganon. Tapos, so pandemic. Tapos, the origin of the pandemic is actually because of biodiversity, of destroying biodiversity, di ba? 75% of all pandemics come from mutations due to disrespect to nature. So for example, yung hindi pa naman yung kunyari yung monkeypox galing siya sa unggoy, 'di ba? And yung maraming sakit galing sa lamok, sa daga, etc. And yung lamok at daga, the way to actually manage that is to let the forest flourish. Kapag dumadami ang lamok at ang daga, ibig sabihin nun wala nang kumakain sa kanila. Or hindi naaalagaan yung mga species like eagles. 'Di ba? Yung natural predators nila. At ang nangangalaga ng gubat ay kadalasan tribo. 75% of all biodiversity areas in the Philippines are within indigenous people's territories. And that number is higher in the world. 85% yan sa mundo. Mas mababa lang sa atin kasi marami tayong dagat eh. Pero yun, what does that mean? At kaya kami may mga mapa dito kasi this is to prove that indigenous peoples, ito yung gubat. Sorry, medyo magulo lang yung mapa. Ayan, wait lang. Ayan. Ito yung...
Saan na tayo? Yan.
Yan, nasa Nueva Vizcaya to. Ito yung forest nila. Tapos kung titingnan natin, lang,
Ito talaga yung impact pag may map, no? Nakikita mo yung...
yan, ito yung forests nila. Tapos, kung titinan mo, so yan yung forest, yung darker green is what you call a closed forest. Yun yung hindi pa talaga masyadong na-modify. Pero they live in harmony with the forest. Ay, may citrus plantation, may rice fields.
Bubuhay talaga.
Naka-etch yung rice field adjacent to the forest, tas may vegetable plantation. Tapos may river network. What does that mean?
Water system, natural water system.
Ang ibig sabihin nun, conservation, yung pangangalaga sa kalikasan, most of it actually entails that you actually support the people who are already there. Yung mga tribo. Kasi people think when you conserve nature, you leave nature alone. Pero if you look at the evidence, in order to defend nature, you need to defend its defenders. Kasi nature cannot defend itself. It is defended by people who have a relationship, an intimate relationship with it, to protect it against humanity. Kasi if you leave humanity, if you leave nature by itself, may papasok diyan, may maninira, may kukuha, etc. So for all of the intact forests in the world, they remain intact because there are people who defend it. So kung titingin kayo ng Save Mother Earth, yeah, save the Mother Earth. Pero the most effective way to save Mother Earth is to save the people who are defending it. So, in that sense, when you support indigenous peoples, you actually support the survival of humanity. Kasi the way to prevent yung harsh effects of climate change is to keep our forests intact, keep our river systems, keep our oceans intact. And yung de-defend nun yung mga tao, yung mga tribo. So if you inform yourselves of the issues of the tribe, if you contribute to their struggles, it means that you are actually caring for humanity, of its survival against all these threats of the pandemic of climate change. So, and that is really selfish on our end, kasi ibig sabihin nun, if we support tribes, we actually benefit more from it than they benefit from it. Kasi if you support them, you allow the humanity to continue living the way it is right now, or to not at least get to the tipping point of climate collapse. So yeah, I guess that's my last point.
Questions? Intindihan? Clear ba? Thank you very much, Timmy. That was ako, ngayon ko naiintindihan the impact, the bigger picture. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Sige. So, if walang questions, on behalf of my class, we would like to thank you for your time and your effort and for your advocacy. Tuloy lang ang laban. Sana wag ka marenta. Ayun. Maraming salamat, Timmy.
Okay. Thank you, EG.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Sure.
Maraming salamat. We'll end the meeting na. Thank you. Okay. Sige. And meeting for all.